What is good, everyone? Welcome to the channel. My name is Paul. I make videos about Japanese society, life, and culture from the viewpoint of a long-term foreign resident. I've lived here for almost 19 years now, and today I'm tackling a big topic. That is immigration. This topic came up last week by a commenter because I was talking about the idea of the countryside being a way that Japan could achieve a more sustainable economy and could maybe bring itself out of the stagnation of so many decades since the bubble burst. And basically the whole idea was diversify, stop the hyper-urbanization of Tokyo, because we have a dying countryside here and a hyper-urbanizing Tokyo that's getting more and more crowded. So one way to perhaps turn things around is to diversify where young people and the next generations of Japan grow up. If you want to check out that video, I'll link it below. But a commenter noted, well, where does immigration fit in all of this? And that's a great question. So let's talk about immigration today. But first, I want to quickly point out where we are walking today. We are in historic Nishiura, which is part of the town of Fujiyoshida, at the foot of Mount Fuji in Yamanashi Prefecture. And this place is so retro that film and TV studios actually come here to film when they need a Showa era, so 60s and 70s backdrop. And immigration. First of all, I think everyone kind of knows the pros and cons, so I won't get into that too much. But for Japan specifically, the pros are that need a greater tax base to pay for the pensions and health care of the increasingly elderly population. Greater consumer base to support the economy and companies that are trying to survive in Japan. And also, diversity. There's a lot of great things that come along with diversity. Some negatives of immigration, of course, would be sometimes you get people that are more problem than benefit, and of course the Japanese themselves aren't really keen on the idea of immigration. When you talk to Japanese about immigrants in polls, etc., it's always a pretty clear majority that don't want to have an opening up of Japan to a lot of immigration. So where do I stand on the topic, especially since I am an immigrant myself? Perhaps unsatisfyingly, I am on the fence about immigration in Japan. Please let me explain why. I think you will understand my logic if you hear me out. So first of all, I'm a little bit against immigration because I don't trust the current government or administration to do it the right way. We already have programs that bring in workers from like Southeast Asia, Philippines, etc., and they're called trainees, and they're put into the care sectors, the agricultural sectors, and manufacturing. And the way it works now is they just have a short term that they're here. Their visas expire in a certain amount of time, and they're just sent back to where they came from. It's not really an immigration policy. It's a migrant worker policy, basically. Import needed labor and then send it home. And you can ostensibly stay if you check all these really specific boxes that show that you should be allowed to stay, and it's really hard to get that status. So that's not an immigration policy that I would support. I wouldn't support a migrant worker policy. That's not what I imagine when I think of having real immigration to help Japan at least. Furthermore, the situation exists that even skilled workers and workers in kind of white collar positions and such, you have to check a lot of boxes there too in order to bring your family to Japan. If you want to bring your family, you gotta jump through a lot of hoops, and otherwise they just want you, they want your labor, and then they'll send you home after you're done. So the way the current government has handled the immigration issue in the past is a reason why I wouldn't be so keen of it just like being an extension or expansion of that. That's not what I'm in it for. I just want it to be something that would actually work to support society as it is now, and I think that it could be done to support society, and I think it could be done in a way that we wouldn't end up with this potential like economic underclass of migrant workers in Japan. And that leads me to this idea that I just spoke about a moment ago about how we have this dying countryside and hyper-urbanizing cities. Now, where will these migrant workers likely go? Well, if they're in agriculture and manufacturing, and where are all the elderly people? The countryside. Basically, so many of these workers are going to end up out in the countryside. And so it feels like you could very well end up with this like population of Japanese in the cities who lead very nice lives and are supported by all these poorer workers that are kept out in the countryside. And that kind of two-tiered society is definitely not something that I would want to see Japan have. So what is my solution or my idea? Well, this is where I can kind of get into maybe positives of immigration. And that is, I feel it could be used to support the plan that I talked about last week. You see, if Japan is trying to recapture the Showa era booming economic miracle before the bubble burst, which seems to be what they keep always trying to hint that they want to get back to, I think that's doomed to fail. Because this economic model of growth forever, exponential growth, always have more population, you need that to grow the economy, to keep it stable, I think that's going to lose in the end. That's not a stable nor a sustainable goal. I think Japan is actually in one of the best situations in the world to kind of teach everyone how to age and decline gracefully and well. I think that with the right policies put in place, you could actually come up with an economic model where the population and the economy stabilizes. It doesn't necessarily grow a ton, but it also doesn't stagnate, nor suddenly everyone ends up poor. I don't think it has to be one or the other, because I don't think it can be one or the other. Growth forever is not sustainable. And so let's put the best minds to this and try to think about ways to make a sustainable economy, a sustainable Japan that can use immigration well to support the policies in place, but not just become some kind of overrun country with immigrants because they're trying to recapture Showa era prosperity with the Japanese population still falling. So I'm not a brilliant economist. I'm not someone who is going to have a lot of ideas for how to make the decline of Japan graceful and sustainable. But I do have the one idea that I talked about last week, which I think could go a long way to help. Not only actually reverse a little bit the falling population, but also create different scales of economy that could make the country basically persevere and get through economic shocks more easily than it could now. Because if you think about it, Japan has no diversity at the moment. Everything is in the one basket of Tokyo. Everything is Tokyo, with a little bit of Osaka, Nagoya, and some other large cities, but still large cities nonetheless. If we could bring back the countryside and make it actually a viable place to live and work and have your company and have your family, I think that could go a long ways. And then immigrants could be brought in to support and be a part of that economy to help keep it stable. Again, not to recreate the Showa growth, because that's a pipe dream, let's be honest. It's been 3 decades. We're not going back to Showa anytime soon. Even though I'm kind of walking through Showa town right now. I just realized the symbolism of where I am regarding what I'm talking about. So that's where I stand on immigration. Basically, I feel that if it's done right and it's done to support solid policies, immigration can be done well, it can be done right, and it can be done to support a sustainable and balanced and harmonious growth in Japan. So I'm definitely not anti-immigration. I think immigration from a variety of countries, etc., would be beneficial if done in the right way. I fear, however, ways that Japan could do immigration that would not be the right way. And I'm also pretty much, I have to admit that it's impossible to be against immigration entirely, because Japan does need workers. That's just the bottom line, is they're going to have to get them from somewhere. And I believe it's going to have to be some kind of combination of policies that reverse the demographic trends of Japanese people themselves and inserts immigration into that to support it at the same time. I don't know. Let me know what you think. This is, again, maybe just part of my pipe dream, but I fully intend to research more and write some articles on this very topic, because I've done a lot of thinking and I've come to pretty passionately believe that a return to the countryside could solve a number of Japan's demographic and economic issues, and that where immigration could fit in, as that commenter asked, I think it could definitely be a useful and excellent addition to that type of program. But again, I'd be firmly against any kind of just migrant worker program. Basically, come here, give us your labor, the best years of your life, and then you get sent back to where you come from. That's not the way to go. Anyway, let us know in the comments what you think, what I had to say, or ideas that you have yourself. I'd be really curious to hear if anyone has some interesting ideas that could support or even go against what I was saying today. But at any rate, I want to thank you very much for watching this particular episode, and I will catch you next week. Peace.